Since Election Day, various guests, attorneys, and elected officials have appeared on Newsmax and offered opinions and claims about Smartmatic and Dominion Systems, both companies that offer voting software in the U.S., and Newsmax would like to clarify its news coverage and note that it has not reported as true certain claims made about these companies. There are several facts our viewers and readers should be aware of. Newsmax has found no evidence that either Dominion or Smartmatic owns the other or has any business association with each other. We have no evidence that Dominion uses Smartmatic software or vice versa. No evidence has been offered that Dominion or Smartmatic use software or reprogrammed software that manipulated votes in the 2020 election. Smartmatic has stated that its software was only used in the 2020 election in Los Angeles, was not used in any battleground state contested by the Trump campaign. Newsmax has no evidence to the contrary. Dominion has stated the company has no ownership relationship with the Pelosi family, the Feinstein family, the Clinton family, Hugo Chavez, or the government of Venezuela. Neither Dominion nor Smartmatic has any relationship with George Soros. Smartmatic is a U.S. company and not owned by the Venezuelan government, Hugo Chavez, or any foreign official or entity. Smartmatic states that it has no operations in Venezuela. While the company did election projects in Venezuela from 2004 to 2017, it was never founded by Hugo Chavez, nor did it have a corrupt relationship with him or the Venezuelan government. For more on this, please go to our website at newsmax.com. Read facts about Dominion Smartmatic that you should know.
Irregularities of mail-in opinions about the integrity of the election, the irregularities of mail-in voting, election voting machines, and voting software. One of the companies, we reached out to one of the leading authorities on open source software for elections, Eddie Perez, for his insight and views. Eddie is the Global Director of Tech Development at the Open Source Election Technology Institute. We asked him for his assessment of Smartmatic and recent claims about the company.
Have you seen any evidence that Smartmatic software was used to flip votes anywhere in the U.S. in this election?
I have not seen any evidence that Smartmatic software was used to delete, change, alter anything related to vote tabulation.
Smartmatic says its software was never used outside of LA County in 2020. Do you know whether or not that's true?
That is my understanding. Smartmatic functioned as the contract manufacturer for the Los Angeles County voting system, and that was a customized system that was effectively built to the county's order. I am not aware of them having any other direct customers, relationships with election officials in the United States.
What about Smartmatic and Dominion? Do you know if they're related, whether one owns the other, whether Dominion uses Smartmatic software?
Both Dominion and Smartmatic have individually and respectively put out very clear statements from their corporate headquarters, each of them indicating they are independent companies, they are not related to each other. It is my understanding that neither one of them has an ownership stake in the other or anything like that. They are, again, for all intents and purposes, two completely separate companies.
Have you seen any evidence of a connection between George Soros and Smartmatic?
I'm not aware of any direct connection between George Soros and Smartmatic. It is my understanding that an executive at Smartmatic has some sort of relationship with one of Soros's foundations. That's the extent of my knowledge.
Have you seen any evidence of Smartmatic sending U.S. votes to be tabulated in foreign countries?
No, I'm not aware of any evidence that Smartmatic is sending U.S. votes to be tabulated in foreign countries. Again, I'm not aware outside of Los Angeles County of Smartmatic tabulating any votes in the United States because I'm not aware of them having any customer relationships in the U.S. And secondly, as others have pointed out, irrespective of which voting technology vendor we're talking about, in the United States, the ballots that are cast in the United States are tabulated in the United States.
Are you aware of any instances in which Smartmatic's technology was banned in the U.S. in 2020 due to security weaknesses or wrongdoing?
I am not. I'm not aware of any instances where Smartmatic's technology was banned in the U.S. Again, it is my understanding that outside of one customer in Los Angeles County, Smartmatic has no presence in the voting technology marketplace in the United States.
So what happened? What happened with your Twitter account and the company page?
Well, first mine was taken down because we have all the election fraud with these WD machines. We have 100% proof. And then when they took it down about 3 weeks ago, and then when I put it back up, my personal, it was a...
Mike, thank you very much. Mike, you're talking about machines that we at Newsmax have not been able to verify any of those kinds of allegations. We just want to let people know that there's nothing substantive that we've seen. And let me read you something there. While there were some clear evidence of some cases of vote fraud and election irregularities, the election results in every state were certified, and Newsmax accepts the results as legal and final. The courts have also supported that view. So we wanted to talk to you about canceling culture, if you will. We don't want to relitigate the allegations that you're making, Mike, because we understand where you are. So let me ask you this. Do you think that this should be temporary because it appears to be permanent? Could you make an argument that it is temporary?
What?
Could you make an argument that this would be a temporary banning rather than permanent?
No, I want it to be a permanent because you know what? They did this because I'm revealing all the evidence on Friday of all the election fraud with these machines.
No election fraud.
Okay, Mike, can I ask our producers, can we get out of here, please? I don't want to have to keep going over this.
Actually,
we Newsmax have not been able to verify any of those allegations.
Mike, hold on a second. Everybody hold on a second. Mike, hold on 1 second. Let's talk a little bit about just what is happening overall in terms of censorship.
Cancel out my company and myself. Okay. In this country, it's cancel culture.
Thank you, Mike.
share your concern about the violence and criminality that occurred over the summer. It was extremely serious activity. We used all the tools in our toolbox to pursue our joint terrorism task forces, treating it as a form of domestic terrorism as well. And in fact, last year we had more anarchist violent extremist arrests than we'd had in the prior 3 years combined. So we at the FBI are taking both forms of domestic terrorism extremely seriously. I appreciate your input.
Are you aware of any of those individuals being in solitary confinement?
Well, again, same answer as in connection with the January 6th arrest.
All right, Director Ray, thank you. I get the point. I'd love to ask about the Durham report, Hunter Biden's laptop, Hunter's business dealings in China, and a host of other things. But my time has expired. I will wrap up, but I would urge this Democratic leadership to hold hearings on riots that took place across this country last summer.
Gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Lynch is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank all the witnesses. Thank you for your service. I would actually not want to know about Hunter Biden's laptop. I'd like to know about the attacks on January 6th. Good. And Lieutenant Pyatt and General Flynn, again, thank you for appearing today. Lieutenant Pyatt, in your written testimony, you stated that, quote, it was important for the D.C. National Guard to figure out the basics of their new mission. But Major General William Walker has testified that his forces were ready to go well before he finally received Acting Secretary Miller's authorization to deploy to the Capitol. Lieutenant General Pyatt and General Flynn, our committee has obtained evidence that you both recommended that the National Guard deploy to protect other federal buildings and locations in Washington, D.C. to help relieve civilian police and security forces so they could go and defend the Capitol. Is that correct?
Congressman, we received the first request on 1 January, and we spent those days preparing the D.C. National Guard to support Mayor Bowser's request for unarmed traffic control points and crowd control. When the call came in, and it was after 2:22 that afternoon, the urgent request now was to support the Capitol. That was the change of mission. The approval
Whoa. Let me just back. Let me claim my time. On January 4th, 2021, at the direction of then Sergeant Ops Michael Stenger and then U.S. Capitol Police Chief Stun, they contacted General Walker to find out how many National Guard he could provide and how fast could he provide them if they were needed at the Capitol on January 6th. So we're talking about an urgent need for the National Guard, D.C. National Guard, on the Capitol, not other buildings. And so I go back to the apparent decision by yourself and General Flynn to deploy National Guard not to the Capitol, but to other federal buildings around D.C. and other monuments. Is that what happened here?
Congressman, on the 3rd and 4th, both the Department of Defense and the Department of the Army asked Capitol Police if they needed additional support, and both times the answer we were told they were not. What happened at the urgent request for now forces to come to the Capitol is we knew we would have to remission them because they did not have their riot control gear with them. We had to get them back to the armory. We had to reconfigure them and re-equip them to get them forward.
Okay.
On the phone call, what I suggested was we were looking at a range of options. Is there anything we could do immediately in the current posture we were in that would then help relieve others to get to the Capitol? There was not, and we moved on from that.
All right, so let's go to January 6th. This is January 6th at 4:20. Lieutenant Pyatt, you reportedly told Major General Walker that the National Guard should, quote, plan and prepare to transition from traffic control points and be placed around other federal buildings and monuments. This is when it was hitting the fan at the Capitol, at D.C., you know, at the Capitol complex. The Capitol was under attack, and you were deploying or recommending that General Walker deploy people to other buildings. And I can't reconcile that, given the threat that we were under. And I'm just curious, at that moment, what were you thinking? What was your reason?
Congressman, I'm sorry, Congressman.
Go ahead.
Congressman, I do not know where that report came from. I denied that. At 4:30 that afternoon, we were minutes away from getting an approved plan from Secretary McCarthy. We had approval at 3 o'clock to use the Guard. We had at 3:04, we had approval for full mobilization of the DC National Guard. What we needed was a new mission, and that new mission is what took time. There was no other seeking approval. But we needed to redeploy forces.
Look, let me just, on the chronology, your recollection does not match what the record says. So the 420 call was 80 minutes after Secretary Miller determined that all available forces of the DC National Guard are required to reinforce DC Police and U.S. Capitol Police positions. So it almost seems like we're deploying the National Guard or recommending their deployment away from the Capitol. And I haven't got a good answer on that, and I'm not getting one today.
Congressman, I would refer to the U.S. Army report of operations on 6 January that we submitted to this committee. The timeline was that we had approval at 3 o'clock after the 2:30 phone call. We had approval to mobilize at 3:04. Then we needed to have a plan which required the redeployment of the Guard, reconfiguration, re-equipment, now to go into a mission that they were not previously conducting. They were conducting an unarmed traffic control point. That was the time we needed, and we recalled people from their civilian workforce. What the DC National Guard did in those short hours was extraordinary. Now, when people's lives are on the line, two minutes is too long, but we were not positioned to respond to that urgent request. We had to re-prepare, so we would send them in prepared for this new mission.
Madam Chair, my time has expired. Thank you, General. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Grothman, is now recognized.
Thank you. A few questions for all of you. And I don't really know the answers or not, but these are, I think, the type of questions that people back home are concerned about. How many people were in the Capitol that day? I mean, members of the public. How many got in? Does anybody know the answer to that question?
And it's Director Ray. I don't know that we have a reliable estimate, but certainly we've already arrested close to 500, and we have hundreds of investigations that are still ongoing beyond those 500.
I know Senator Johnson got a limited amount of video, and he's having his staff try to figure that out. I mean, we're about 5 months after this took place. We still don't know how many people are in the Capitol. You can't just give me that 1,100, 800. We don't know, huh? We don't know. Okay. Of those people in the Capitol, well, I am under the impression that day that there are people who clearly, horrifically did wrong things. We saw them on the video. They broke the windows. They broke in. But we also remember seeing people on TV that day who were almost let in the Capitol. Could you break down, give me numbers broken down in those two areas, the number who broke their way into the Capitol and the number that appeared to almost be escorted in by the Capitol Police?
I'm not sure I could give you reliable numbers on that sitting here right now, but maybe let me try it this way. When we step back and we look at January 6th as a whole, you have one group of people who didn't reach the Capitol, didn't enter unlawfully into the Capitol, didn't commit acts, who were sort of peaceful, rowdy protesters. Those are not people that we are pursuing. There's a second group, smaller, but still very sizable, who were in the moment engaged in all sorts of criminal behavior of the sort that you're describing. And those people are being prosecuted for a variety of offenses. And then there's a third group, which, while the smallest, is by far and away the most serious. Those are the people who were clearly coming with intent to commit very serious mayhem, who brought all sorts of weapons and protective gear and other things with them. And those are the people who face the most serious charges. And so I sort of look at it as a kind of inverse pyramid, with the most serious people being the smallest group, but all of them it's a sizable number. Obviously, we've already indicted 30-something for conspiracy charges alone. And as I said,
I want to focus a little bit on the people who didn't do any physical damage, didn't engage in any physical contact with the police, and at least appeared to me that day to be allowed in the Capitol. Are there people like that?
Like that who were in the Capitol?
Correct. As I recall watching TV that day, there were people who, it appeared, were walking in the door, and it appeared as though the Capitol Police, perhaps out of exhaustion, for whatever motivation, allowed people to walk in the Capitol. Are there people like that?
Well, at any given moment, you might have somebody caught on a particular stretch of video walking along in a way that's unremarkable. I really can't speak in a broad categorical way about intent of individuals.
People back home are concerned about a certain class of person. I want to know whether you feel these people existed. Were there people allowed in the Capitol who didn't engage in any physical confrontation or do any damage, and just wound up in the Capitol, breaking the law, but they would have no way of knowing they're breaking the law? Were there people like that?
I really can't give you an assessment of that at this stage. That's why we're investigating, and sometimes investigations lead to charges, and sometimes they don't. There are people
have you arrested? I talked about all the 500 people or whatever have been arrested. Are any of those people you arrested, would they be included in the type of people I just described?
I really can't say. What I would say is that people who have been arrested because they violated federal criminal law, and there were sufficient facts to support the elements of the offense.
Okay,
prosecutors felt confident
I'm running out of time.
Beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yeah, I'm running out of time, so I'm asking one more question. Were people arrested who walked in the Capitol, perhaps had no reason to know they were breaking the law, and were, as one Capitol policeman described it to me, just milling around? Were people like that arrested, and are they still in jail?
Can't speak to any specific case, so I'm really not sure that I can answer the question. We've had 500 arrests, and they've ranged in all sorts of variations in facts and circumstances.
Gentleman's time expired. The gentleman from Virginia, Mr. Conley, is now recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And Mr. Ray, thank you for those 500 arrests, and I hope there are 500 more. I hope everyone who participated in this outrage is held to account and brought to justice. I might also say, Madam Chairwoman, listening to our colleagues on the other side of the aisle, reminds me of the musical Chicago, where Richard Gere says, when you can't win an argument, razzle dazzle, distract, do the shuffle. Talk about fundraising. Talk about mass. Talk about anything but a violent insurrection that cost 7 lives, 5 here and 2 suicides, because 2 cops internalized the failure that occurred on January 6th on themselves. Ignoring it, distracting it, denying it, gaslighting it, calling it just a bunch of tourists who get a little carried away, is repugnant and a dishonor to the memories of those who did die, and a dishonor and disrespect to those who were willing to put themselves at risk on our behalf, and more importantly on that of the Republic for which we stand. Mr. Ray, Director Ray, January 5th, Field Office in Norfolk issued an intelligence report warning of online threats discussing specific calls for violence against Congress the next day, on January 6th. Words like be ready to fight, get violent, get ready for war. It also stated, we get our president or we die. Nothing else will achieve this goal. According to previous congressional testimony you've given, this report was shared in an email with other law enforcement agencies. But for some reason, the report did not make it to the high-level officials who needed to see it despite its alarming content. Is it true that you did not see this report until after the 6th?
Congressman, I think the report you're referring to is not an intelligence report, but what we refer to as a situational information.
It was a report from your field office in Norfolk, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yes, our Norfolk.
But even so, it's pretty alarming.
Absolutely. Now, it's raw, unverified information, not attributed to a specific individual online. But I would say it was alarming enough. It was alarming enough that we took steps to share it not one, not two, but 3 different ways with our partners here in the National Capital Region. One was with an email to their representatives on our Joint Terrorism Task Force, who are there precisely to be their eyes and ears, so everybody makes sure we have the same information. Second, was briefed orally to the members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, including members of the Capitol Police, who again were there. And then third, on our law enforcement portal, which exists for the very purpose to share information with our partners about potential threat.
Did anyone alert the Capitol Hill Police Chief at the time, Stephen Sund, to the existence of this very alarming field report?
I'm not aware of whether he was alerted by anybody in his own department or elsewhere, but certainly it was shared with the Capitol Police.
But you are aware of the fact that that police chief, former police chief, in fact, has testified he was not made aware of it before the 6th.
I'm not sure that I'm completely up on what former Chief Sund has or has not testified.
Okay.
So I really wouldn't want to.
Access Vision. Your voice, your community.